Hello, what's going on, YouTube fam? This is J Muddy here, bringing you guys a new video regarding side decking, primarily against the newly established meta deck Sky Striker Trickstars, but also against other decks as well. You know, things that can also be pretty universal against multiple matchups. Now, before I start, I want to let you guys know I did get I finally started my brand new job after 3 weeks of complications and stuff, so it's kind of hard to make a video considering, you know, I have to be working at 6 in the morning and don't get off until 2. But it is now, the weekend is now over, so I don't have to, you know, go to locals like immediately after work. So I guess during the weekdays is a better time to make videos. But anyway, what was I about to say? Oh yes, New Jersey, YCS New Jersey has concluded. And with that, we have the top 32 breakdown. For starters, literally half, as in 16 of the 32 top players, were playing Sky Striker Trickstars. That's what half the top 32 was represented by. Now, 3 more slots was also taken up by pure Sky Strikers, and 2 of those slots were taken up by pure Trickstars. So you got a hybrid of the 2, and then you still got the other 2 mixed in there. But you also got 6 Gokis. It's okay. You got 6. It's okay. It's okay. It's pretty good. But you also got 2 Altergeist, 1 ABC, and 1 Spiral. I think I might be missing something else. I don't think I am. But yeah. So I think it's very, very understood that Sky Strikers slash Trickstars, or both, has solidified themselves as the top decks of this format. And, you know, Spirals only have literally 1 top because, you know, their deck is still kind of fragile. And you only got 6 Gookies, but yet Firewall is still a problem, right, guys? But that's besides the point anyway. But anyway, what I wanted to do was I wanted to kind of fill you guys in on how to better manage this matchup. But before I had to do that, I had to first research this deck because I've heard about it and all that good stuff, and I didn't think it was good at first because of the fact that literally the 2 archetypes that are coming together literally on paper contradict each other so goddamn much. Tricksters win off of their board presence, and Sky Strikers, you can't have board presence to play their cards. And so, you know, I'm over here trying to figure out how the hell does this deck work if they contradict each other so damn much. So, I came up with a few things. For one, Sky Striker Trickstars is still really Trickstars to its core. It is still a tempo control based deck. It still wants to control your cards in a sense to where they can still maintain more tempo over your own deck and do tons of damage and keep you controlled due to burn when your life points are low enough. That is still their main win condition and all the good stuff. But what is interesting about the Sky Strikers is that they play engages, of course. Anything that's playing Sky Strikers is playing engages and Hornet drones, obviously. But with the addition of things like Afterburner, which they play about 1 of, they play about 1 to 2 copies of Widow Anchor as well, depending on the deck. And they may play a copy of Jamming Waves and all that good stuff. So, what are the benefits of these cards? Well, for starters, they encompass a couple of things. You know, Trickster's weakness being unable to get over big beaters. It's a little bit more managed due to spells being dumped into the grave, and Kagari and Shizuku's either boost or reduction effect is pretty good. It helps out the Tricksters in that way. And also, if you open multiple terraformings, Engage is probably going to be a +1. Same with Afterburner and all the other stuff. So, you know, they maintain card advantage that way and all that good stuff. So, you look at a deck like this, and it's like, okay, And we all know Tricksters are going to really lose their board 9 times out of 10 if they go first. And that's when the Widow Anchors and all that stuff are pretty live, so you can't really kill them and all that good stuff. So they do have quite a bit of resilience there. So a lot of people think, you know, with a combination such as these two, how do you beat a deck like this? Well, for starters, you have to do 2 things to this deck. This particular build of Trickster Sky Strikers, you have to either OTK them. You have to go for OTK turn 1, because again, they are playing a Sky Striker package. So anything involving Sky Strikers, you either need to OTK them turn 1, or you have to control their tempo, so you can stop their advantage from consistently getting racked up and all that good stuff. So with that being said, we're going to start with the OTKs real quick. So for starters, we all know that the deck still plays tons of hand traps. Don't get me wrong, that hasn't changed. They still play a lot of hand traps, but now they're having to control you with things like Widow Anchors and such, and you know that can be a problem. So for starters, we're going to start with these 2 cards. We're going to start by Call by the Grave. Bring that here. Okay, Call by the Grave and Forbidden Lance. Forbidden Lance, I was already teching in my side deck already as is, due to Ultrageist being able to play turn 0 with Impermanence, because, you know, this actually allows me to play through Impermanence, because it actually makes myself unaffected by spells and traps, which, this is huge. So we're going to go and start with this card. For those of you who aren't, you know, that much of a veteran player, Forbidden Lance is like Forbidden Chalice, except for spell and trap cards. In a sense, you reduce, it's a quick play, you reduce the monster that's targeted by 800 points, which sounds like a bad thing, but in exchange, the monster is unaffected by spell and traps for the entire turn, which can be really huge, especially if the monster that you need to go off as a main combo starter or combo piece and all that good stuff. So, and also it's also good in other matchups. Again, these side cards that I'm going to show you guys are also universal sides against multiple matchups. So it's not like you're just having just a purely dedicated side against one deck, and you have a dead side against another deck. So yes, this also deals with impermanence and all that good stuff, which is, it's huge, it's a big deal. So with that being said, now we're going to go and move on to Call by the Grave. We all know it negates hand traps, but against Tricksters, now that Tricksters and Sky Strikers have considered solidified themselves as the best decks as of this past YCS, we all know that both Tricksters and Sky Strikers play a ton of hand traps. They both do. Well, for those of you who haven't played against pure Sky Strikers, know they play Ogres, Ashes, Drolls, and sometimes even Cherries in the main deck. So they are playing a lot of hand traps to control the tempo, because they know their deck isn't the fastest, but they want to out-resource you, but they can't afford to get OTK'd. So things like Call by the Grave are really, really good for that matter alone. Not only that, but the benefit to the hybrid, the Sky Striker Trickster matchup, I'll just call it Sky Stars or some shit like that, fuck it. But the benefit here is that they're not, I think very, very few hybrids are playing Ray, the actual, you know, effect monster. So if you rid their board of their Link monster, you don't have to worry about a Ray just coming back and stopping you from killing them. That is one benefit to this hybrid and all that good stuff. So with these 2 cards out of the way, we're going to go on to the next 2 cards in terms of tempo control. And these are going to be these cards, Shared Ride and Droll Lockbird. Now, Droll and Lockbird against the pure Sky Striker matchup, it was okay, but it wasn't that great, simply because they can sit there and they already got what they needed from the deck, essentially. and they can just they can still just sit on the Kagari and get their engage back and save it for next turn, and set the Widow Anchor that they had just searched, and all that good stuff. So Droll stopped them from getting multiple engages, and it stopped the Suzuku search, but you know, that initial engage still resolved, and all the good stuff. Same for Shared Ride. They can literally just they can sit on a Kagari and not add, and literally just be fine, and all that stuff. Same with Tricksters. Droll Lockbird was only good against Tricksters if they started their turn off with the terraforming. It was really good, but if they didn't start with terraforming, they got their Candina search anyway, and it really wasn't as effective. Same with the Shared Ride, but with the hybrid version of this deck, it searches so much. It searches an incredible amount, because you still have the Light Sages, you still have the Candinas, but then you're adding the Shizuku, and you're adding Engage along with that. So Droll is a much more powerful. The same with Shared Ride, especially Shared Ride in some of the Trickster matchups. Depending on the circumstance, if Lilybell is somewhere in circulation, that is something that you guys need to take into account. So, with that being said, these, if you're playing a fast deck, or even a control-based deck, just to try to control the tempo of the speed of their deck, I highly recommend it. Now we're going on to some of the control cards, some of the cards for decks that you want to maintain some sort of card advantage, and you want to maintain tempo control over. And we're going to start with these cards. We're going to start with Anti-Spell and Unending Nightmare. So, with this being said, obviously Anti-Spell is incredibly powerful against Tricksters anyway. Added with the fact that Sky Strikers are spell reliant as well, it's even more crippling than what it originally was. Now, the thing about Unending Nightmare, I chose this because you want to get Light Sage off the field. Just plain and simple, you do not want Light Sage to resolve, let alone stay on the board. If it stays on the board, you're in trouble. It's not as good, but if you're going first and you need to stop Light Stages from resolving, this is something I recommend. Not only this, but if you guys have not taken note of the Sky Striker Trickstar deck, they're incredibly powerful, but they have lost something in the process of making this hybrid. They're not as protective as they once were, because their protection is in the form of the spell cards, and they have to have an empty board to do so. So, if you guys have not noticed, the Sky Striker Trickstar decks are not playing trap cards, except for the obvious reincarnation. So, that is one thing you guys also need to consider, is the fact that you don't have to worry about Solemn Strikes and Torrential Tributes and all that stuff. At least game one. Some people might actually side that stuff in, or have that stuff in their side decks. That's something else that you guys have to keep a note of. The fact that they're not playing trap cards anymore is huge. So now them going first is not, you know, the biggest auto win in the world. If you can establish any sort of field with a spell negate to negate their auto, their Widow Anchor, you can easily win the game. So cards like Naturia Beast is really, really good. Any deck that can make Naturia Beast, or, you know, if you're playing Pendulums and you're stacking attributed cards to the top of your deck with Dark Doriano, you can play Spell Canceller too, if you watch Steven's channel and all that good stuff. Which I did play Pendulums this weekend. I played Pendulums, and it was really, really awesome. My only loss was to Tricksters. Game one, I had an insanely good hand, but I started off with Cerberus and it got ashed. And so I just kept my hand the way it is. I didn't play anything because I didn't think the player could just OTK me. But of course, open triple light stage. And yeah, just open the absolute stones with triple light stage. Go figure. But anyway, game two, I sided a certain card, which I'm also going to show you guys. But I ended up hitting the wrong card. But anyway, if your deck can play Side Blocker, which is not the card I'm talking about, but if you can play Side Blocker and you really need to put a stop to the spell, to their engage, you can go ahead and call that, but they may not always have it. That's something you gotta keep in mind. But if you know you're playing against tricksters, you might want to call Lilybell, or no, not Lilybell, Licorice. That's the one, because what I ended up doing when I was playing Pendulums, I was siding these cards, and I called the wrong card. I called Candina. Prohibition. You declare any card name in the entire game, and your opponent cannot use that card. They can't put it into play, uses effects, nothing. I called Candina because my theory was, hey, if they can't use Candina, they can't get Light Stage, they can't search Licorice, they can't search Reincarnation and all that good stuff. But, you know, I should have called Licorice, because Licorice is the one that you can get multiples of. You get multiple Light Stages, and then you can continuously just get drained out of life points because Lilybell is still a card and all the good stuff. So if you're playing a deck like Pendulums, you can go ahead and call Licorice. But this is also multi-purpose as well, because I sided this against somebody that was playing Cherries and had Electromite in their extra deck. So I actually opened this up, played it, and called Cherries to make sure I can go into all three of my Electromites, and then on the third Electromite, then I would blow this up, since at that point, I don't have to worry about Cherries just completely just robbing me of actually making plays. So if you're playing a deck like Gokis, you can play this and call, I wouldn't call it Zold, because if they, even if they don't Cherries something like an Isolde out of the extra deck, Firewall is what finishes your play. It's what finishes your combo. So I would call Firewall. There could still be ways to get there and all that good stuff. So not only that, but if your deck doesn't struggle against hand traps, then you could call some of the spell cards that could potentially stop you in your tracks, or just make Nat Beast and just win the game. Last card, Denko. Again, there is a chance that your opponent can still be playing trap cards in the side deck and all that good stuff. And once again, once you clear their monster board, their quick play spells are live. Their Widow Anchor is live, so that is something that you need to also be able to hold, keep in mind, because getting the monsters off the board is the first thing. Then you have to get past their spell cards. You know, you got to get past their hand traps first to make a board, establish a spell negate or spell trap negate, and still be able to OTK. These are your 3 steps you want. Not only this, but I haven't even mentioned that some of the players can still be playing Scapegoat, because Scapegoat is still a nice win condition for that deck. Not only this, but this card is just good against control decks, because a lot more control decks have just been popping up out of nowhere. At least in my locals, so, you know, that's just me. But that's the things you want. These are the 3 things you want to consider when this matchup is in effect. 1, your opponent is still playing a lot of hand traps. 2, they're not playing a lot of traps, or that, if any, the only traps they would be playing is Reincarnation. They have to take all their traps out of their deck so they can make space for the Sky Striker cards. So they're now no longer playing traps. So if your deck was weak to traps, congratulations. You have an easier time, but you still have to deal with Widow Anchor and all that good stuff. Not only that, but, you know, Shizuku's can drop your opponent's, you know, your monsters down a bit. So keep that in mind. So deal with their hand traps, deal with their monsters, and then you have to deal with their spells. If you can OTK them doing that, then you're good. But if you're playing control, cards like Anti-Spell Fragrance, Rivalry of Warlords is actually an incredible card, because if they start with Hornet Drones and you flip over that Rivalry, they lose. Period. But keep in mind, guys, this is a Trickstar deck. Light Stage is still a card. So if you have something that you can... I would only set cards that you can flip over immediately, and then set the rest later. But Floodgates like Rivalry, being able to only control one type, since Hornet Drones, I believe... Is Hornet Drones a machine? like either or. If they can summon their Sky Striker cards, but if it stops them from summoning Trickstars, it's good. If you can stop Trickstars from hitting the board, it is really good. So things like that, anti-spell, Imperial Order, stopping spells and restricting their the amount of monsters they have on the board is key if you're playing a control deck like Altergeist, because Altergeist control the whole deck is nothing but spellcasters. So if you're playing a deck like that, or True Dracos, True Dracos already play anti-spell and rivalry anyway, so I don't even know what I'm saying there, but that is how you're going to deal with this matchup. You want to either control their spell cards to control their tempo, or control their monsters, which also controls tempo. So if you're playing a control deck, Altergeist might be your best bet because you have more disruptive cards along with Floodgates, because Altergeist play anti-spell and rivalry as well. They also play skill drains, and Altergeist's added benefit is protocol. So your cards cannot be negated by things like Ash Blossom, and even if they side striked, those aren't good either. So let me know what you guys think about these side choices. Again, against this deck is powerful, but it has lost one key feature, and that is its protective ability. And it always lied in its trap cards. They were always playing things like Torrential Tribute, maybe Bottomless if you were playing it, Solemn Strikes, Solemn Judgments, things like that. If your deck was weak to that stuff, congratulations, you have an easier time. Be sure you can establish something that negates spells, though. That is something that you need to keep in mind. Negate their spells if you're going second, and control their monsters if you're going first. So, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching. This is J Money, and I am signing out.